The Lebanese army says Israeli forces have violated the new ceasefire agreement several times since Wednesday. The death toll in the Gaza Strip rises to over 44,000, with injuries surpassing 104,000 since October 7, 2023. And the Russian president says his country would use all weapons against Ukraine if Kiev were to acquire nuclear arms. You're watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Lebanese army has said Israeli forces have violated the new ceasefire agreement several times since Wednesday. The Lebanese army has stated on X that on Wednesday and Thursday, following the announcement of the ceasefire agreement, the Israeli forces breached the terms multiple times by conducting air violations and attacking Lebanese territory with various weapons. The army added that it was following up on the violations with the relevant authorities. The total toll of the Israeli aggression on Lebanon has reached 3,961 deaths and 16,520 injuries, according to a report by the Public Health Emergency Operations Center of Lebanon's Health Ministry. Israeli airstrikes on Tuesday resulted in 78 people deaths and 266 injuries. Residents of Baalbek in Lebanon have expressed sorrow over the damage done to a historic building. The building, known as the Manshia, was just a stone's throw from the UNESCO-listed temples of Baalbek in eastern Lebanon. The country is home to thousands of years' worth of antiquities, some of which were damaged or destroyed in the war. People who fled the hostilities in Lebanon to Syria have been seen waiting by the border in the Jediat Yabus to cross into Lebanon on the second day of the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Cars crowded by the departures hall on the Syrian side of the border with Lebanon, with people carrying belongings as they return to Lebanon. According to the UN Population Fund, approximately 473,000 people have crossed from Lebanon into Syria due to the conflict. For more analysis, we go to our newsroom with Mark Summers. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Kareem. Now, for more on Lebanon, we are joined from Amman by the strategic expert, Issam Malkawi. Thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. First of all, how do you think the ceasefire is going so far? And what do you make of these violations of the ceasefire by the occupation in Lebanon?
In fact, all parties have felt relieved when a ceasefire agreement was reached. But the question is, who's going to be in charge of observing the execution of this ceasefire agreement right now? It seems we only have two parties here, which are Hezbollah and Israel themselves. And, the one who has the right to defend itself right now is Hezbollah, because the Lebanese government, over the previous period, which was replete with skirmishes, the Lebanese government was nearly absent. And so there has to be right now negotiations to be carried out between Hezbollah and the Lebanese government in order for the Lebanese formal government to speak on behalf of Hezbollah. And we now have a political vacuum in the Lebanese state, and it's just the head of the Lebanese parliament that we have. And Israel, or the Israeli occupation forces, stated that they have not yet achieved their goals. And so Israel is now considering this ceasefire agreement as some kind of a lifebuoy for itself, and Hezbollah perceives it in the same light. But the execution of the actual ceasefire agreement is actually the predicament that we have right now, specifically in light of Israel, bombing some venues under the pretext that they have observed some kind of violation to the ceasefire agreement. And right now we can say that we are back to square zero, which is the period before October the 27th. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that any kind of party of the belligerent parties right now can just claim that there is some kind of a violation to the ceasefire agreement, and they can violate this agreement under this pretext. And of course, Israel, because it has a lot of apprehensions of being defeated by Hezbollah, it was, I would say, obliged to sit down and sign this ceasefire agreement. However, there are no clear guarantees to or that can secure a full compliance to the provisions of this ceasefire agreement. And so I can say that we are now before a new phase that is unfolding right now. I hope it's not going to be replete with escalation, but I believe that the two belligerent parties are not going to just, abide by the provisions of the agreement.
Okay. Well, on that point, Mr. Makawi, could I ask you, is it likely, in your view, that the fighting will resume after the 60 days stipulated in the ceasefire agreement?
There are items and provisions in the agreement that allow Israel to stay deployed in the region for 60 days and to withdraw over the course of 3 days, like over every 20 days, it will withdraw partially. But we all know that Israel, once it occupies a region, it never really withdraws. That's something we all know. And so, based off of that, we, right now in 2024, and no other agreement that has to do with the withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces was enacted at all. But when it comes to the return of displaced persons from the north in occupied Palestine and the settlements there, and the return of the Lebanese displaced persons to their original places, regarding this subject, we all know that Israel is not going to let this happen. I believe it is Hezbollah's and Lebanon's right to allow settlers to go back to their settlements to the north of the occupied Palestine. And so what we are perceiving right now is just, the modus operandi of Israel, that they always have some kind of a circumvention to operate.
Well, thank you very much,
in order
Sam
to violate
Al-Kawi.
it.
Thank you so much, a strategic expert joining us from Amman. Thank you very much. You made some great points there. I will go back to you, Kareem.
Oh, thank you very much. That was Mark Summers in our newsroom with this analysis segment. Now, moving on, a World Health Organization official has voiced optimism that some of the health facilities in Lebanon shuttered during more than a year of conflict would soon be operational again if the ceasefire holds. WHO representative in Lebanon, Abdel Nasser Abu Bakr, said that some hospitals would take some time, but that others will probably be able to restart very quickly. He added that he is very hopeful, saying that 4 hospitals in and around Beirut were among those that could restart quickly.
It's a critical window to address the urgent humanitarian needs. And I think what's more important is that
Lebanon's Speaker of Parliament, Nabih Berri, has set a January 9 date for the House to elect the country's president. Lebanon's parliament will meet on January 9 to elect the new president, seeking to end more than 2 years without a head of state. Official Lebanese media reported today after a day after Israeli Hezbollah ceasefire began. The death toll in the Gaza Strip has risen to 44,330, with the number of injuries rising to 104,933 since the start of the Israeli occupation aggression on October 7, 2023. Medical sources indicated that the occupation forces committed 3 massacres during the past 24 hours, killing 48 citizens and injuring 53 others. Moreover, at least 10,000 people are unaccounted for, presumed dead under the rubble of their homes throughout the Strip. The High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, has called on the international community, especially the European Union, not to undermine the International Criminal Court. Borrell said that supporting the ICC and strengthening its decisions is the only way to achieve justice in the world. He added that Netanyahu's government is trampling on international law and violating international humanitarian law, stressing that what is happening in Gaza is a flagrant violation of human rights.
After what has happened in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank, this is a different Israel. This is a different Israel.
On the other hand, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has said he believed the U.S. would punish the ICC for having issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former defense minister. Israel said it will appeal the ICC decision to move against Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in the Gaza Strip. But during a visit to the Czech Republic, Saar said that other countries were also dismayed by the decision, including the US. Saar added that Israel would finish the 14-month-old war in Gaza when it achieves its objectives of returning detainees being held.
You can hear criticism also from our friends in the Czech Republic, but you can also hear the voices from Washington.
UNICEF spokesman Kazem Abu Khalaf has said that 2,500 children in the Gaza Strip need urgent medical evacuation. He added in a press statement that the situation in the northern Gaza Strip is extremely difficult and tragic and is getting worse. Abu Khalaf pointed out that 30% of children in the Gaza Strip suffer from severe malnutrition. He also revealed that 95% of the schools that house displaced people in the Gaza Strip have been completely destroyed. The UNRWA has said that the survival conditions are dwindling for about 65,000 to 75,000 people who are being estimated to still be in the northern Gaza Strip. UNRWA explained in a post on X for more than 50 days between 65,000 and 75,000 people have been facing dwindling survival conditions. UNRWA also noted that the past 3 days have seen heavy rainfall and a significant drop in temperatures, while thousands of families who have been displaced from the besieged areas are now facing the cold and rain of winter without blankets, mattresses, or shelters to protect them from the water. The Israeli occupation forces have detained at least 15 people, including a child and a student, in the occupied West Bank during the last 24 hours. The Detainees and Ex-Detainees Affairs Commission and the Palestinian Prisoners Society said in a joint statement that the detention operations took place in the cities of Tulkarm, Qalqilia, Ramallah, Bethlehem, Hebron, Jenin, Nablus and Jerusalem. PPS and the Commission affirmed that the total numbers of Palestinians detained in the occupied West Bank since October 7th has risen to over 11,800. Israeli occupation forces have shot a young man in the town of Turmasaya, north of Ramallah. Local sources told Wafa that Israeli soldiers stationed in a house they seized in Turmasaya opened fire on a young man's vehicle from Al Mughayr, wounding him in the shoulder. The Israeli forces had seized the house of Muntasir Naji Salama at dawn on Wednesday, forcing the family to leave and turning it into a military barracks. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Russia would use all weapons at its disposal against Ukraine if Kiev were to acquire nuclear arms. Putin added that the transfer of any nuclear weapons to Ukraine would mean a violation of all the non-proliferation commitments previously made. The Russian president did, however, say that it would be practically impossible for Ukraine to produce a nuclear weapon. Putin also said that there were no preconditions to start talks with Ukraine on a possible peace settlement, but the terms he set out in June for a deal remain unchanged. The governor of the Ukrainian region of Mykolaiv has said that a Russian missile attack has caused power cuts in the region. Russia unleashed its second big attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure this month, cutting power to more than 1 million people in the west, south and center of the country. President Vladimir Putin said Moscow had struck in response to Ukraine's strikes on Russia's territory with American medium-range ATACMS missiles. Damage to infrastructure facilities was recorded in 9 regions across the country, according to Ukraine's Interior Ministry. A senior U.S. administration official has said that Ukraine should consider lowering the minimum age of military service to 18 from 25. In April, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed into law legislation to lower the mobilization age for combat duty from 27 to 25, expanding the number of civilians the army could mobilize to fight under martial law, which has been in place since Russia launched its military operations. Ukraine's foreign ministry spokesman has stated that Ukraine is now in a situation where it needs more equipment. He added that Ukraine's priority is for military aid to be sent faster. He also commented on Putin's recent statements, calling them an attempt to influence the new U.S. administration and to show that the new administration is weak. He further claimed that Putin only wants to expand his aggression.
This blackmail is the expansion of war.
Russia has launched a widespread missile attack on Ukraine. All regions of Ukraine were under air raid alerts earlier Thursday amid Russia's latest long-range drone and missile barrage against the country's energy grid, with almost 1 million people reportedly left without power. Ukrainian president said Russia launched around 100 drones and more than 90 missiles into Ukraine, including projectiles carrying cluster munitions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that the pressure on Russia must be increased so that it feels what war is. Zelensky said that the recent authorization for long-range strikes on military facilities in Russia helped, but added that the pressure on Russia must be maintained and increased at different levels. He also said that Ukrainian Defense Minister, who is currently on a visit to South Korea, is discussing everything that concerns Russia's involvement in North Korea in the war against Ukraine with Seoul's leadership. Official data showed that Turkey's trade deficit shrank by 10.5% year-on-year in October to $5.9 billion. Data from the Turkish Statistical Institute showed that exports rose by 3.1% year-on-year in October to $23.5 billion, while imports remained steady at $29.41 billion. The data also revealed that the trade deficit narrowed by 30.1% to $65.8 billion during the January-October period. Russia's central bank has announced it will suspend foreign currency purchases until 2025 to stabilize financial markets after the ruble fell beyond 110 to the dollar, losing one-third of its value since August. The bank, which uses Chinese yuan for interventions due to sanctions, said the move aims to curb market volatility. The ruble was down 7.25% on Wednesday, trading at 113.15 to the dollar. Global shares had a mixed performances as investors await developments on Trump's decision to impose tariffs on Canada, Mexico and China. In Europe, Germany's DAX advanced 0.7%, while the CAC 40 in Paris gained 0.6% and Britain's FTSE 100 rose 0.2%. In Asia, South Korea's Kospi was unchanged, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index lost 1.3%, Shanghai Composite Index fell 0.4%, and Tokyo's Nikkei 225 Index gained 0.7%. US markets is closed on Thursday for Thanksgiving. And that brings us to the end of this news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering. The Lebanese army says Israeli forces have violated the new ceasefire agreement several times since Wednesday. The death toll in the Gaza Strip rises to over 44,000, with injuries surpassing 104,000 since October the 7th, 2023. And Russian president says his country would use all weapons against Ukraine if Kiev were to acquire nuclear arms. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.